It's not even called the Friday news dump when the news you want to hear is coming Friday afternoon. It was kind of the reverse of that. Tennessee got big-time news Friday afternoon. Unless you're living under a rock, you know what I'm talking about. We're going to discuss Bru McCoy and that and more, all coming up on a Monday show.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into it. It is officially game week on Rocky Top, and we've got you covered right here on Locked On Vols. Ball State coming up on Thursday. Can you believe it? We are finally here. An off-season, a winter, a spring, a summer, early portions of fall. Well, it's not really fall yet, but you know what I'm saying. All that time talking about talking season, going over lists, spring practice, summer workouts, recruiting, all that. And now it's finally game week. So, guys, buckle up. Really enjoy it. Congratulations. You guys look forward all season long. I look forward all season long. You literally work all year for this little portion of the year. And so I'm thrilled that it's finally here. That being said, we're loaded up here on Locked On Vols this week, bringing you the best coverage possible to get you ready for Ball State, for Tennessee. Locked On Vols, your first listen, your first watch on YouTube. And it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. I'm your host, Eric Kane. I do radio in Knoxville, Tennessee, and 99.1 The Sports Animal. I also write for the rival site covering the University of Tennessee. That is volquest.com. As I said in the cold open, Bru McCoy is finally eligible and will be out there on the field for Tennessee come Thursday night, and if healthy, every single game this season. So that's some big-time news. We're going to finish up our scouting reports. We're going to look at Vanderbilt, who had a big-time showing and a big-time win in Hawaii over the weekend. We'll tell you all you need to know about the Commodores of Vanderbilt. And then in segment number 3, something I'm really excited about. Father of Jabari Small, running back at Tennessee, joins the show and has a lot of good things to say on his son, Jabari, of course, but also about Josh Heupel and this season coming up. So that's what you have to look forward to all day long right here on Locked On Vols. Bru McCoy. So obviously big-time news that Tennessee got on a Friday afternoon. I came down. I was actually recording something, working on something for later in the week, and I got a tip on my phone, and I was in the middle of something, so I missed it. But anyway, VolQuest still broke the news, Austin Price, that Bru McCoy has been deemed eligible by the NCAA and is ready to go for Tennessee. We've discussed the saga ad nauseum over the last couple weeks, that USC pretty much could have put all this entire thing behind them if they signed the NPO, that being the non-participation opportunity waiver for Bru McCoy, who was not going to be eligible for Southern Cal this year because he signed with them, transferred away to Texas, then transferred back. And, of course, Bru had legal issues outside of the field. All that's been cleared up in terms of there's no legal holdup for Bru McCoy or anything. It's just a matter of trying to get on the football field and play. And USC was not going to give him that opportunity this year, so he transferred away to get away from that whole situation. Has come to Tennessee, and it appears that he's been a great teammate, and his family's been very involved in Josh Heupel's program. They bought in and all that type of stuff, and it was just a matter of getting him eligible. And Southern Cal again communicated that they were going to sign the NPO to grant him that eligibility. Turns out they never did. Tennessee started putting the pressure on them a little bit publicly, and Southern Cal responded by coming out with a statement last week saying, "Oh, we've done everything we can to help Bru McCoy and gain his eligibility and all that type of stuff. We wish him the best." And it looks good on the surface, but at the end of the day, all they had to do was sign the NPO. Maybe they were advised not to sign the NPO. I don't know. I'm not that far into it. And, from a legal standpoint, potentially, I don't know. But regardless, they didn't sign the NPO. Tennessee went back to the NCAA, which they were trying to avoid because we know the NCAA takes forever to solve these type of matters. But even before that statement was released, they went out to the NCAA, filed for his eligibility. And lo and behold, Friday afternoon, the NCAA said, "Hey, Bru McCoy is eligible," and that is good news for Tennessee. And you were talking on the radio Saturday morning and kind of what was obviously excitement. Obviously, a lot of good things were happening for Tennessee fans on a Friday afternoon and, over the course of the weekend. But more so than anything, I think the word might be relieved. Now, keep in mind, we've discussed this, before as well. Bru McCoy's played pretty much one season. It was in a COVID abbreviated short season back in 2022. He's played one season of college football. He did a few things, scored a couple of touchdowns, had a couple of receiving yards and everything, but he was kind of third or fourth on that depth chart. There were some good players in front of him. Left you missed the season, was not eligible for a season, and pretty much he's not played since. Bru McCoy's got a lot to prove on the football field. I think by looking at him at practice, by looking at his stature, and by everything that people have told me about Bru McCoy, I think this is a guy that if you go out and you put you have a good season, maybe have a good season next year as well, this guy could have an NFL future in front of him. But lo and behold, you got to do it, right? A lot of you guys are giving me crap about Anthony Richardson. I said he's going to be a future NFL quarterback, and points, you can't just go off size and stature and athletic ability and everything. You gotta get some tangible stats. And I mean, obviously, if that's the case for Anthony Richardson, that is 100% the case for Bru McCoy. I think he can do it though. I think that coming in, he had a hip surgery over the offseason, a hip procedure, and he did not have the normal offseason like everybody else. He was limited a little bit. It took him a while to kind of get in shape the first couple of days in camp because, again, he hadn't played in quite some time. Doesn't mean he hadn't been working out around a football team, but he hadn't played, especially in this type of offense, in quite some time. But as camp went on and he got in shape and he learned the system, he looked good out there when the media was present. Spoke with an assistant coach last week and said, I said this on the radio as well, I'll say it here in case you didn't hear it. They said in my conversation with the assistant coach, we thought we were getting this person in Bru McCoy, a guy that, could help. We could throw it out there on third downs. He can go and, pick up some yards, be scrappy and everything. What we've gotten has been so much more than that so far in fall camp. And so from a Tennessee perspective, from the Tennessee coaching side, they are thrilled with what Bru McCoy is, where he's at in the system and everything like that. So, what's that mean? Well, it means that we don't have to play the guessing game on who might be starting opposite of Cedric Tillman come Thursday night. Now, again, Bru McCoy, the best three wide receivers for Tennessee right now, Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt in the slot, excuse me, and Bru McCoy out on the other side. That does not mean that he might be out there play one on Thursday. I mean, he's going to be a starter moving forward. Don't get me wrong, but there will be a rotation on Thursday night. There'll be a lot of guys playing out there, and I, with Bru eligible or Bru not eligible come Thursday night, I think that you're going to see a lot of Walker Merrill. You'll see some Ramel Keaton, some Jimmy Holiday, some Chaz Nimrod, some Caleb Webbs out there on the outside. You'll see some Jimmy Callaway in the slot, some Squirrel White. You might even continue to see potentially Jalen Hyatt move out to the outside and one of those other slot guys, get in there at the, Jimmy Callaway or Squirrel White. But now you have a Bru McCoy out there and you feel really, really good about that. So that's good news for Tennessee. That's good news for Bru McCoy. He's going to be able to play, and let's see what he can do. Size and stature-wise, he is just a little bit shorter than Cedric Tillman, but he is a big dude. He is explosive on the outside. He runs really good routes. He's quick. He catches the ball well, and so I'm really excited to see what Bru McCoy looks like in this offense. But the kind of the opposite of the Friday afternoon news dump, typically when you want things to fly under the radar and, Rob Manfred doing something stupid with Major League Baseball like he continuously does, he'll put it out there in the Friday news dump, or the NCAA extending Mark Emmert. That was a Friday night news dump last year. This was a Friday night news dump, but it was news you wanted to hear. And so wherever you were when you heard that news, I'm sure you were super, super excited. But Bru McCoy is eligible for this football season, and he will suit up at number 15 for the Orange and White come Thursday. That is some good news. All right, we got that out of the way. Bru McCoy is eligible. Let's go in our final scouting report. Let's take a look at the Vanderbilt Commodores. And before we get a message from the NHTSA, and then we'll have that scouting report. Are you one of those people who thinks it's okay to drive stoned? What's the worst that can happen? You end up driving below the speed limits? It's no big deal, right? Well, you're pretty much wrong, okay? The truth is your reaction times slow way down when you're high. You not only put yourself in danger, but everyone else around you. Talk about a buzzkill. Stop kidding yourself. It's not okay to drive high. If you've been using marijuana in any form, don't get behind the wheel. If you feel different, if you drive different, drive high and get a DUI. All right, boys and girls, welcome back into it. It is officially game week, but before we get even more to Ball State, and we've talked Ball State, we'll continue to talk Ball State all week long. We got Josh Heupel. His game week press conference is coming up later this morning, about 12:15, I guess later this afternoon, about 12:15 here on a Monday. But we got plenty to get into in terms of Ball State, but we got to finish up. We got to wrap up our scouting reports. And today we're going to discuss Vanderbilt and the Commodores. Big time win over the weekend against Hawaii. Really big time win. 63-10 was that final score. And Clark Lee even came out and said, language disclosure or disclaimer coming up. He even said, hey, is that what it feels like to open up a can of whoop ass? I mean, because it's been a while since Vanderbilt's done anything to that nature. So it was a good win for Vanderbilt over the weekend at Hawaii, 63-10, and they start off 1-0 on the season. And as we look in today and we close out our scouting reports, we will talk about the Vanderbilt Commodores. All right, so as I pull it up right here, Vanderbilt, it's going to be week 13 of the season, game number 12, the final game of the regular season for the University of Tennessee. It'll take place on Saturday, November the 26th, the Saturday right after Thanksgiving, as it always does. And we are TBD, of course, on TV and kickoff time. That game will take place in Nashville, Tennessee. Last year, Tennessee, a 45-21 win. Tennessee looking for its fourth straight victory in the series, and of course, a series that's been absolutely dominated by the University of Tennessee. Last season, Vanderbilt, the first year under Clark Lee, record was 2-10. I told you guys this. I remember in Hoover for SEC Media Days last summer, or 2 summers ago, I remember Clark Lee getting up there and some of his players saying, yeah, we really like the direction of the Vanderbilt program. We like Clark Lee. And, he's all about earning everything. We don't have any numbers right now. We don't have any lockers right now. We have to earn all that stuff. We're starting brand new at Vanderbilt. And I sat there and I'm like, all right, this guy's going to be an absolute disaster. I mean, this is Division I professional football. Like I get the meaning behind it, but like, come on, this is not Pee Wee. This is not high school. This is SEC football. All right, so let's get in gear. I knew from then that would be a complete disaster, and obviously there were other contributing factors than that. But Vanderbilt had a disappointing season in 2021. 2-10 was the final record. But hey, a lot of optimism for Vanderbilt. Clark Lee very confident in his program. At SEC Media Days, he even had this quote saying, "We know in time Vanderbilt will be the best program in the country." Yikes. Again, good opening win over the weekend, 63-10 over Hawaii, but yikes is all I got to say to that. Vanderbilt does return a lot on offense, but this offense was just, and I always try to respect the opponent. I always try to respect any program, but oh my God, this was just flat out pathetic is what Vanderbilt was in 2021. Remember, they lost by 20 points to ETSU early in the season, a season ago. I think that was week 1, actually. 15 points per game was what Vanderbilt scored in 2021. That was, keep in mind, 130 FBS programs in the country. 15 points per game, ranked 128th out of 130 FBS Division I programs. That is second worst. My goodness gracious. Or third worst. That is pathetic. All right, 189 yards through the air. That was easily last in the SEC. 123 yards on the ground. That was 12th in the SEC. Quarterback Mike Wright, who got the start at Hawaii. And, of course, you had Clark Lee saying at SEC Media Days in Atlanta this past year that Mike Wright would be the starting quarterback. He threw for 1,094 yards last season, completing 53% of his passes, 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He was second on the team with 370 rushing yards from scrimmage. He looked good against Hawaii, and of course, Hawaii is just really, really bad. You had Mike Wright that went 13-21, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And on the ground, he had 13 carries for 163 yards and 2 touchdowns. 4 total touchdowns for Mike Wright over the weekend against Hawaii. You also have quarterback Ken Seals. Ken Seals used to be the starter for Vanderbilt, and I think Mike Wright kind of came in as a freshman or was either injured or one of those years, but they were high on both of those guys. Ken Seals got the start as a true freshman and then ultimately lost his job as a sophomore to Mike Wright a season ago. Still, he threw for 1,181 yards, 5 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and again, only completing 52% of his passes. So neither one of those guys played well a season ago. Ken Seals is still on the roster, but he did not get the action and mop-up duty. That was Austin Swan or AJ Swan over Saturday's game in Hawaii. They got the mop-up duty. I don't know if Ken Seals is hurt. I don't know if Ken Seals is third on the depth chart. I would believe to say that he's not third on the depth chart, but he's still on the roster. And so if anything happens to Mike Wright, I would expect Ken Seals to step in and play. Wide receiver, kind of their go-to guy last year, if you want to call him that, Cam Johnson, transferred to Arizona State. Will Shepard, the second leading receiver from a season ago, 41 receptions, 560 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He returns, as does Devin Bodie, who had 29 receptions, 263 yards, and a touchdown. Vanderbilt, though, on the ground, goodness, only 8 rushing touchdowns in 2021. Only 8 rushing touchdowns in 2021 for Vanderbilt. That offensive line, though it lost its best player off the offensive tackle Tyler Steen to Alabama, does return 3 starters and adds in North Texas transfer Jacob Brammer to the mix. So you got to think that could help with the run game potentially. But man, Rocco Griffin, who was the leading rusher a season ago, he returns 140 attempts, 510 yards, 3.7 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns, nothing to write home about. Also returned Raheem Davis, who only played in 3 games a season ago because of injury, but he has experience as well. So not a lot on offense whatsoever. Not shocking, but not a lot on offense. You look over at the defensive side of the football for Vanderbilt, 457 yards given up per game, last in the SEC. 35 points per game given up in the SEC, last in the SEC. 193 yards given up on the ground, almost 2 Bills. That was 13th in the SEC. Second only to Missouri, who, was just trash last year on defense. And through the air, 264 yards passing given up per game. That was, again, 13th in the SEC. I do bring back some experience on defense. I will say that. Linebacker Anfree Orji, who's a really good tackler, led the team in tackles with 93, had 12 TFLs as well, playing on the edge. He's a pretty good player. I'm going to say that. Linebacker Ethan Barr as well returns. He had 85 tackles a season ago. Vanderbilt does add a transfer from Clemson, pretty much a reserve at Clemson, but he might have a chance to get in the mix this year, and Kane Patterson playing in the middle. Strength does come at safety for Vanderbilt. A couple of veterans back there. Jalen Mahoney, 53 tackles a season ago, and Max Worship, 52 tackles a season ago. They return at the safety position. But again, this is a defense that just lacked explosive plays. It was not very good. You have a couple of defensive linemen, Nate Clifton, who has had 12 starts, Malik Langham, who's had 3 starts. Those guys look to appear at defensive tackle. And they've also had a cornerback in Jeremy Lucen from UConn as well. But back to the defense, just not a lot of explosive plays, okay, in 2021. Get this. Jalen Mahoney, who's the safety, really good player, tied for the team lead with 2 sacks a season ago. A safety tied for the team lead with 2 sacks in 2021. Just awful. Even more eyebrow-raising, eye-popping numbers than that. The team had just 9 sacks overall in 2021, 12 games. 9 sacks as a team in 2021. The team only scored 8 rushing touchdowns as a team in 2021. This Vanderbilt team in 2021, I hope they're better this year. And I know a lot of you guys are saying, who cares? But I mean, goodness gracious, that's awful. That looks bad on the conference. Looks really bad on the conference. Any way you want to spin it. So that's Vanderbilt last season. Again, that is Vanderbilt last season. I will point out once again a week 0 win at Hawaii. I took Vanderbilt minus the 9, and boy, they did not disappoint me. 63-10 was the final score at Hawaii. If you look at the team stats overall, you had Hawaii total yards on the day 601. Threw for 197, ran for 404 yards, averaging 9.2 yards per rush. Man, they caused 2 turnovers, created 2 turnovers for Hawaii. The run game, I mentioned Mike Wright had 163 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground as a quarterback. Rocco Davis, 87 yards and a touchdown. Griffin, the guy I talked about that missed most of last year, he had a rushing touchdown as well. And Shepard, the second leading receiver from a year ago, 2 touchdowns through the air, 39 yards on 3 receptions for Vanderbilt in the passing attack. Defensively, Max Worship, one of those safeties I talked about, 7 tackles. He did have a pass defense as well, and he kind of led that defense at Hawaii. So good start for Vanderbilt in the 2021 season, but they've got some work to do. I think the total for Vanderbilt this year was like 2.5. Hammer that over. Even before week 1, I said all offseason, hammer that over. If it's a 2.5, I mean, Vanderbilt will get 3 wins on the season, but should not be an issue for Tennessee whatsoever. All right, I'm going to shut up now. Our scouting report's done. A lot of you guys ask all offseason, can you take a look at the Tennessee's opponents? And I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm going to do that. And, well, here it is game week, and I'm finally done. So there you go. We'll continue to flip the script to Ball State the rest of the week. But coming up next here on Locked On Balls, I want to get to my conversation with Eddie Small. He is the father of Tennessee running back Jabari Small. Some great conversation coming up about his son, Tennessee, Josh Heupel, the 2022 season, all that and more. That is coming up next right here on Locked On Balls. Welcome back into your Monday edition of Locked On Vols, a final segment. It is finally game week, so a whole lot of excitement around Rocky Top and wherever you're listening to this podcast. Really, really do appreciate that. As I teased earlier in the show, I got a special guest on here for the final segment here today, and that's the father of Vols running back Jabari Small. His name is Eddie Small. Eddie, thanks so much for taking the time. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Doing wonderful. Glad to be here.
Well, I know that as every Tennessee fan is right now, and even me in the media, like I mean, we spend all year talking about it, and finally to see some football games, and that's why we do it. So we're super thrilled. I know you probably got to be even more thrilled to see your guy out there, repping the number 2 for Tennessee. How excited are you for this upcoming season? What are you expecting?
Well, I mean, I'm very excited for Jabari. I mean, I know the work he's putting in, and coming from off of last year where he was injured for the majority of the year, he's very excited to be able to get out here and perform and help his team, be productive. So I'm just excited for him. Start off on a good note, and health wise, yeah.
Yeah, you brought up some of the struggles he had last year, just kind of staying on the field, and I thought, I mean, he was super productive when he was in the ball game a season ago. Easily, in my opinion, could have been a 1,000-yard rusher if he was out there just a little bit more. But over the offseason, set out a little bit of spring practice, but you can tell that he's put the work in to change his body, or not even really change his body, just to, as Jerry Mack would say, put on more armor. And there's a noticeable difference between him this time last year and him now. How proud are you for that, and how was that journey, kind of watching him go through that over the last 9 months or so?
Oh man, it's amazing. I mean, to watch this kid mature. It's one thing to say you want it, but it's another thing to actually put the work in. That's on the field and off the field. And I've actually watched him when he comes home. I look at him like, wow. You can tell that you can see the dedication he's putting that into that weight room. So. Last year, I mean, he unfortunately, I mean, I won't say unfortunately, but unfortunately with the injuries, he was limited. You can imagine playing running back in the SEC. It's one thing you have to carry that ball and make plays, but it's another thing you have to sit back there and you protect that quarterback with two blown short shoulders. And I wouldn't do it. So he's. I always say, man, he's tougher than I am, without a doubt.
He came up as a freshman a couple of seasons ago. Got a little bit of PT. I remember the Arkansas game. He ran really hard and did a good job there. And then obviously last year, first year with Josh Heupel, his role expanded, and he was the guy. And he's the guy this year. And he's the leader, one of the leaders on the offense. Obviously a leader in that running back room. How have you seen kind of his play on the field improve over the course of the last 2 seasons, and now here in year 3?
I mean, I would say he's done a tremendous job. Playing the SEC, coming from high school, I don't care. Not even just from high school, coming from another conference, with this portal. Man, this SEC is fast. I mean, when I tell you fast, you got nose guard D linemen that are making plays on the sideline, on hitches or whatnot. So for him to actually be able to catch on, last year he was put in a situation as a sophomore. Of course he had the two, Eric Gray and I can't think of the other kid's name that transferred. Right. So they end up leaving the program, which left him, as the number 1. But I know Jabari, he's a competitor. He was going to go in regardless if they were there or not. I know he's wanting to go in and compete, and he's wanting to make his own mark in the SEC. So to watch him, progress like that over the last 2 years is, from my point, is I'm very impressed, very impressed.
And it says a lot from you as well. I mean, obviously you're a parent. You want what's best for your child. You're going to support them. You're going to think they're the best guy on the field no matter what, because that's what parents do, right?
Correct, right.
You had a career in the SEC as well in the early 90s, playing at Ole Miss, and caught more than a touchdown or 2 in SEC play. So you've been through it. You know what it takes, and I feel like that's kind of a unique perspective. You got to play parent, but also being a guy that's like, hey, I know what it takes, and I'm seeing that in you right now.
Right. I mean, and and that's the thing. As I was speaking to someone the other day, it's I've gotten old, man. I'll be 50 years old this year, and as an SEC player, man, you got to be tough. I don't care what position you're playing. You have to be tough, man. And in the era that I came up in under Billy Brewer, man. I mean, man, if you can walk, you have to get on that field. So of course, as a parent, man, you don't quite have that same attitude. It's like, hey, man, protect yourself, take care of your body. That there's life after football. But then when you look in this kid's eyes and you look at his demeanor, it's like, hey, Dad, you're not talking about nothing. I wanna play ball, but understanding what it takes, the sacrifices it takes, to stay on that field, man, it's something different. So yeah, as an ex player, you know what it takes. Me having to cross that line with that bridge with him as far as being a parent, from being a parent to like actually being a coach, letting him know, hey man, if that arm is still hanging on by the skin, you need to have your butt in the game. You hate to have to tell that kid, tell your kid that, but that's what it takes. So uh, he quite, I think he got that like midway through the season last year, and he toughened up, and he was able to try to finish most of the games.
Yeah, and he had a couple really good games in the season. Of course, he had a
Mhm.
really, really strong game against in the Music City Bowl against Purdue, and so really looking forward to seeing him tote that rock again this year. When you think back to Jabari as a young guy, and then of course in high school, kind of when did you know that it's like, all right, this my boy's going to go play some big time football. Like he's got what it takes.
Honestly, I don't know if I should answer this question, but you know, I have a pretty good eye for talent. And truth be told, man, I've always been a fan of that kid since he was like playing little league football,
Hmm.
and I mean just his vision. And I'm like, wow, So that I've always had confidence he had what it took, which is you can't coach vision. He had quick feet, he had great feet. I mean, things that I noticed most people don't notice. Like you hardly ever see his foot work like outside his shoulder pads. I mean, he's just got natural good feet. But he's been like that since he was a kid. But to answer your question, I mean, it was when he's going to his senior year. He played basketball and all his life, and this one year, he decided to take off from basketball from high school, and his thing was he wanted to put in the work in the weight room because at the time he was playing defensive back and running back, but true enough, the running back was his heart. But the scouts were questioning his size.
Hmm.
So I've always told him, hey man, you don't worry about the things you can't control. Just concern yourself with the things you can. And if size is one of the things you can control, you know what you need to do. And he went from like 180, 180, like yeah, from like 180, 185 to like 190, like 200 pounds in a matter of a few months. So that sacrifice he made then, um, to not play ball with his friends, to not, you know, to stick to that, to get dedicated to that weight room, it showed me that not only does he had it physically or athletically, he also had it mentally. So but as a dad, you don't want to tell him that and blow his head up or
Hmm.
whatnot. But I always sat back and said, "Wow, I was amazed. Like, wow, he actually made." And I didn't wasn't the one to force him to do any of it. He did it on his own. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's believable for sure. Sitting back and seeing who he is now. A couple more I want to get in here before we let you go.
Okay.
One of his best friends, childhood best friends, high school best friends, his best friend to this day, his roommate Omari Thomas. Came from the same high school. I sit back and in media availabilities, I've asked both of them kind of what that relationship means to one another. I just think that's really really cool.
Oh
Came here to
yeah.
Tennessee together, and now they're in their respective roles on the team, leaders and showing out. As a parent, that's got to be so cool to watch.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Without a doubt. I mean, we reminisce. We have pictures we look at from when they both were like man, back in like age school, third grade, playing basketball together. They had another friend, Kennedy, who played basketball there. That they all grew up together,
Mm-hmm.
and just to watch them like grow and still be there, like real tight, and actually be able to go out and perform both on both sides of the ball. I mean, it's unbelievable, honestly, and they're like brothers, honestly. One of them type when they see each other, they just smile, and it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
As a former SEC player that knows a whole lot of football, what do you like about this Josh Heupel offense and seeing your son, the opportunities, the vertical run lane, spreading some things out? I mean, he creates a lot for a running back. How do you like it? How do you like this offense with the tempo? And then more than that, as a parent, how do you like Josh Heupel and the guy that's kind of leading your son throughout this chapter in his life?
Oh man, I mean, the offense, the way he coaches the offense, the plays, the system. I mean, it's like it's still they're still trying to catch up with it. Let's say that. And what else can you ask for as a parent when you're looking at your child playing on the offensive side of the ball? It's like creativity. It's not It's not predictable.
Mhm.
Um, and it's as you can see last year. I mean, teams struggle with it. We were in the game actually against Alabama with the first quarter, maybe first half. Not, but anyway, we were there. I mean, and that was our first year. So I mean, yet of course, knowing and understanding the process, man, the best is yet to come. It's scary, but as far as a parent, and you know, for also understand like normally when you get when you get coaches that a coaches change, man, a lot of times, and they're wanting to get, especially considering the environment that it's that locker room was accustomed to. Sometimes you want to get personnel change, but for them to actually come in with open mind and for them to give each kid a chance and
Mhm.
to prove themselves, and man, you have to admire that. I know that a lot that scares a lot of parents. But my whole thing is I always tell, I've always told my brothers, my and my boys, like, man, the cream will always rise to the top. So all you can do is go out there and do what you can, concern your things with things you can control. So they were able, as you can see today, Jabari, they lean on Jabari at the running back, and they gave him opportunity. Now, what else can you ask for as a parent?
In prepping for this interview, I pulled up an old article from I think it was the Orlando Sentinel, and I
Mhm.
saw where that was your message to your brother who was playing in Florida, and that was given to you by one of your teammates your freshman year at Ole Miss. The cream
Wow,
always rises to the top. That's
cream
awesome.
on it. That's right. Yeah, man, my freshman year at Ole Miss, man, I signed. I was 17 years old. A lot of people don't understand that. I played my entire freshman year as a 17-year-old kid, and I signed with three JUCO receivers: Vincent Brownlee, Derrick Owens, Tyrone Montgomery. Man, there's some talented guys, but man, in our first game, I didn't. I think we had like 500 or something yards receiving, and I didn't get step one foot on the field, man. And you can understand, you can imagine a 17-year-old kid who's, he's highly recruited, and you have that ego. And I guess Tyrone saw it in my eyes, and he was like, "Hey, man, listen, keep your head up, freshman. You know, the cream will eventually rise to the top." And it just stuck with me, and I made sure, of course, pass it on to my brothers and
Mhm.
my boys, man. It stuck with me through all these years. Yeah.
And now you're seeing Jabari. He is rising to the top. Expanded
Mhm.
role last year. This year, he's the guy, and I think that everybody is super excited to see what he's going to do here in 2022, and of course, the team overall. It's going to be a fun year. I feel like so. Eddie, thank you so much for joining us, man. I know I kept you a few minutes past our time, but
No, good.
awesome stuff, and I'd love you to come back on the pod whenever you get a chance, man.
Hey, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. I enjoyed
Awesome.
it.
Enjoy it on Thursday night and all the other Saturdays this season.
Will do. All right.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
That is Jabari Small's father, Eddie Small, joining the show right here on Locked On Vols. Awesome stuff. Really, really, really enjoyed chatting with him. And If he wants to come back on, he's got an open platform whenever he would like. That's going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols here on Monday. Awesome stuff as we took a look at our final scouting reports of the season, looking at the Vanderbilt Commodores, and, of course, getting you ready for Thursday's game against Ball State, and, of course, Jabari Small's father, Eddie, joining the program. Make Locked On SEC your second listen right behind Locked On Vols. Chris Gordy, plenty of highlights to get into before the season begins, or I guess week one begins, as Vanderbilt was already in action this past weekend. But make Locked On SEC your second listen right behind Locked On Vols, your first listen each and every day. All right, it is game week. Stay locked in to Locked On Vols each and every day. Going to have plenty of stuff. We'll have comments from Josh Heupel coming up tomorrow from his weekday press conference. All that and more. Ball State week, officially game week, the season, the 2022 calendar season. It gets going this week. If you haven't already, please subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe wherever you find your podcast. Locked On Vols, your first listen each and every day. We'll talk again tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody.